Cyberpunk 2077 just got a new update. This is patch 2.2, dubbed the Express Yourself update, and depending on your platform, this will be a hefty download. On PC, it was around 25 gigabytes on Steam, but much larger at nearly 82 gigabytes for some on GOG. Xbox players had a 37 gigabyte download, while PS5 players actually had 2 downloads. An update to the base game, as well as a separate update to Phantom Liberty, each being relatively small. And right off the bat, yeah, this was actually an issue. Xbox only getting that base game update seemed to be in error. So many players installed that update, launched the game, and immediately found this error. And basically what happened here was Cyberpunk 2077 was updated, but Phantom Liberty wasn't. So in turn, Phantom Liberty wasn't loading, and thus you can't really load those save games that were dependent on it. Thankfully, a second update did come out a couple of hours later, so if you're having this issue, just make sure you also are downloading the Phantom Liberty update to resolve this one. Patch 2.2 is going to be a weird one with the community. It brought a ton of changes to the game, many of which overhauled certain features, but a lot of this was cosmetic or even implementing popular PC mods as features. As such, this update will be brutal as far as mods breaking. Tons of mods broke today, and it'll likely be weeks to months before many of these are fixed. So pay attention to this as you watch this video. If you find that the features of patch 2.2 aren't worth updating for you, it might actually be better to stay in the old version. And CDPR is aware of this because they also added a new Steam beta branch, so you can remain on version 2.13 if you want to. And this update does have some secret features that are being found, so get subscribed. I'll have a video looking at those shortly, and stick to the end of this one. Although we did just get an update for Cyberpunk 2077 itself, we also got some updates around its future because apparently more's happening. Although the aspect of this update that's going to appeal to nearly all of the Cyberpunk 2077 players out there is the updated vehicle customization options. This crystal coat feature was added by a past update, and just right off the bat, it was fixed. Previously, this wasn't applying colors correctly, and now it will, but it also got some new options added in addition. Crystal Coat will now apply to even more vehicles and even some of the motorcycles in Night City. I can't show you all of them because there are simply too many new additions included with this, but you'll notice some vehicles now have this paint dropper icon next to them, and this means they can be customized by Crystal Coat. And the customization itself got some additional functionality. You're now going to have independent sliders for color strength as well as grayscale, so this will allow for some really nice combinations where you can have the color being kind of dull as well as lighter or darker. And overall, Crystal Coat's just a really nice feature. You have far more flexibility with making your cars look how you want them, whether that be making them look better or horrific, and this update brought it to far more vehicles in Night City, including some of the most popular options. But to go along with this, they technically did cut a feature as well, as now vehicles that don't support Crystal Coat cannot be used with it whatsoever. Previously, you could secretly activate Crystal Coat on other cars just by holding down the Y hotkey. This would allow you to just change the headlight color, but that feature is gone now from all of those other cars. But in its place, we did get a new feature with Crystal Coat staying on your cars. Previously, when you exited a vehicle, the design would disappear, but now that will persist, which is much nicer. So you could actually get out and walk around to check out your new paint job properly. Although this will reset when you call your vehicle, so you do have to get back in it for it to populate again. And all of this is possible because paint job swapping was overhauled with the newly added Twin Tone. This is a new feature you can access by scanning other vehicles. If those vehicles are eligible for Crystal Coat, you'll find a new Twin Tone tab on that vehicle, where for a small fee, typically just a couple hundred eddies, you can purchase and store that paint job for your own vehicles to use later on. This will come in 2 forms. Some paint jobs are generic, so you can just apply them to any car, while some other paint jobs are unique, and unique paint jobs have their own features. You'll be able to store 4 unique paint jobs per car at any given time, and these are designs you can't typically make yourself. So they'll often have little details like extra stripes or designs on the vehicle itself. And these have a very powerful new feature, because if you switch to a unique paint job while you have a wanted level in Night City, the police will immediately not know what your vehicle looks like, and your wanted level will go away, which is massive. This makes fleeing the police easier than it ever has been before. But also, of course, using vehicles with unique paint jobs is now more lucrative than any other vehicle in the game. Thankfully, quite a few vehicles have unique paint jobs, including some new ones. With this update, CDPR did add in 10 new vehicles, but not completely new. These are vehicles already present in the game that you weren't able to add to your own garage. Thankfully, some of these are the most highly requested vehicles to be able to purchase for yourself. There's some really solid additions here, but some of the other ones are just new variants of some of those familiar cars. And like I mentioned before, thankfully many of these new vehicles also do support the Crystal Coat system. And if you're familiar with that popular mod known as the Passenger, this has been added as a baseline feature into Cyberpunk 2077. After completing the prologue, you'll now have a 25% chance that Johnny Silverhand will just spawn in your car and hang out for the drive. It's a pretty simple implementation. He'll just make a couple of comments after you crash or do something reckless, or otherwise just sit there being pretty comfortable. Sadly, once you take out a weapon, he will disappear though, but it definitely is an upgrade to what was once some of those long, solemn drives in Night City. But if you're a photo mode user, this is going to be one of the best updates Cyberpunk 2077 has ever gotten, as photo mode got a ton of new features and really just a comprehensive overhaul thanks to this update. One of the biggest is going to be with the drone mode, kind of the default photo mode. Previously, this was fixed around V, so you could fly away, but it was kind of in the sphere. So you'd have this clunky anchor point back on your character, and it overall was fairly limited. Now with this update, that distance has been dramatically expanded, so you could fly further and actually focus on photographing other things in the world. You don't have that restricting anchor anymore. And like, I'm not a photo mode user, but I could recognize this is a giant change. The photography options in Night City are vastly expanded just as a result of this one. But even further, there's a ton of additional options that fundamentally change how you can take pictures. You can now disable collisions so you can get these cool vantage shots as you intersect with world objects or NPCs, which opens up a whole new host of camera angles. You can lock the camera so it won't move anymore if you get the perfect angle. You could spawn up to 3 additional characters in photo mode with you. This includes pretty much everyone you would want from both the base game and Phantom Liberty. All of the romance options are here, and even some of the game's bosses, with certain characters having their own unique pose options for some truly interesting setups. There are quite a few mods doing something similar to this, but for console users, this of course will be massive and open up a whole host of new photo options. Although of course, those mods will likely require significant updating to work with this new built-in system, because thankfully photo mode also got some new and custom features that mods didn't really add. New lights were added, so you can have a physical light or even several of them with a bunch of settings to get the scene looking exactly how you want. Beyond that, a few more options were intertwined, but overall this is just a huge one. Photo mode is now dramatically more powerful in Cyberpunk 2077, and you could even see your pictures in your apartment. With this update, all of the pictures you take in game will now be populated in this new album option you could find in your menu. But more impactful, also these new smart frames that'll be assigned to each of your apartments. You don't have to do anything for these, they'll just automatically be added with this update, and once you go up to one, you could add any image from your gallery and make some quick zoom and pan edits to get it looking right in your apartment. This is really cool. Coming home to your own screenshots is just a really cool addition for Night City. Do have some very different shaped frames. Some are landscape, some are portrait, and there's no way to change in between one or the other. But what is perhaps the biggest overhaul is to Cyberpunk 2077's character creator, and the cool part of this one is it benefits you regardless of how you play. 100 new customization options were added to the character creator, this ranging from new eye colors to better nails. You can get some really alt-human looking eyes now, which just fits in perfectly, but also a ton more. A bunch of new tattoos are here, a good range of corpo, but also street kid themed options and even some nomad stuff in between. And what is perhaps the most important change, 8 new types of face cyberware were added, so you can now get things like face plates as a base feature in Cyberpunk 2077, and they look awesome. There's actually quite a few cool options here. And overall, you could finally make your V just as chromed up at least as some of those random NPCs in the world. Unfortunately, the full-on chromification isn't quite here, but it's better. They had a variety of other options beyond that. I simply cannot show you all 100, and 100 new options in total is giant. That's about a 50% increase in customizability in the character creator. Although, to the dismay of many of you, no new hairstyles were added. And this also benefits those who don't really care about spending a ton of time making a character. I'm the hit the randomize twice and move on type of player, but this update also overhauled the randomizer in the character creator. You now have a slider to generate a more punk looking character that is truly foreign looking versus something a bit more traditional, and all of the options in between, because yeah, it's a slider. But even more handy, if you find some aspects of a character that you like while some other things you don't like, you can lock certain features features of that person. So you could lock the face, the eyes, the makeup, and then randomize everything else. And honestly, for me, this is an amazing change. I'm not planning on making any new characters anytime soon, but when I do, I'm going to be spending more time in the character creator as a result of this option. I don't like to spend the hours that some people do, but I'll spend a bit more time with these randomizer options next time around. The update also included a variety of bug fixes and even some general changes. One notable change lots of you will like is the high score required in Trauma Drama to unlock this special outfit was lowered. Now you're only going to need 400,000 points instead of 443,000 that was previously required. Not quite the drop many were hoping for, but hey, a 10% drop is something. And if you're using the newest Intel Arrow Lake CPUs, those got a 33% increase in performance today. They only just came out a couple of months ago though, so you'd have to be on literally the cutting edge. And testing this on my own system, I actually got a slight FPS decrease after the update. As well as some secret stuff was updated. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll have a full video looking at all of this shortly. But one of the most surprising things about all of this was what else was said even outside of this update. Patch 2.2 in its own right was a surprise. I didn't expect a new update for Cyberpunk, and I don't think many other people did either. Leading into this update, CDPR hosted a new Red stream, highlighting the new features, and a new face was present during this. This is a dev from Virtuous Games Paris. Virtuous Games is a massive outsourcing studio that basically helps game developers make stuff. And that name may even sound familiar, as about a year ago, Virtuous Games was leaked as supposedly working on an Oblivion remaster for Bethesda. But this all feels kind of odd, right? Like, not only did we just get patch 2.2 after CDPR made it abundantly clear that Cyberpunk 2077 was done getting updates, but even stranger, they didn't even do all of this update content internally. They hired an outside developer to make this update for them. You can see this much more accurately while you're watching the stream. Pal's constantly interfacing back and forth with this Virtuous Games developer. And it seems pretty clear that, yeah, Pal was kind of overseeing and being the manager of the project, but they were the people actually developing things, or at least that's the impression I got. That just seems odd to me. Like, was this a trial run for a bigger project for Virtuous in the future? Or is Cyberpunk 2077 all of a sudden going to get more updates now? I just don't really comprehend why you'd hire an outside dev to work on an update that nobody was expecting in the first place if you're just gonna make one random update. And there definitely could be more going on here, because right towards the end of the stream, after all of the update features were covered, CDPR said this.
And maybe we still have a surprise or two left for you.
Maybe.
You will see soon enough.
A surprise or two? I thought this update kind of was the final surprise. As we talked about in yesterday's video, many of us are still hoping for official mod tools to come to Cyberpunk 2077. We did not get any news on that today, and after this update, when logging into the game, there's even a new pop-up to receive marketing communications from CDPR about the game if you want to. As of right now, we know that both a new Cyberpunk anime as well as a live-action project are in the works, but it's kind of hard to put this all together. Are we getting more content for Cyberpunk 2077? Perhaps one of those surprises will be mod support. I would fully expect that. I personally imagine it would come at some point next year, but could we actually see more updates beyond that, actual content for the game? Is Virtuous done working on Cyberpunk 2077 after 2.2, or are they going to do more stuff in the future? As far as I can tell, none of these questions have answers. We just had an earnings call a couple of weeks ago, and none of this stuff was really addressed. They didn't really hint at a new update on the way at all there, but at the very least, we know that something is happening. Get subscribed, because I will have another Cyberpunk video coming later this week with those new secrets, and I'll keep you up to date with anything that happens around this game.